Malcolm and Marcus plus you were reborn. Call me Chad X, new Black Panther. With a race fist, I resist racist oppression, injustice. Mark my words, I won't quit. Never give up till we get justice.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy CS Motivated Minds. So Deion Sanders and his Colorado Buffalo team has the internet, the media, our living rooms, the break rooms at our offices on fire. And rightfully so. I mean, the man has done things that we really haven't seen. He had all eyes on not only Jackson State, but on the entire HBCU world. And he's doing the same thing at Colorado. So everybody's talking about Deion Sanders. But what everyone isn't talking about are the comments that Dr. Umar Johnson,
I call him Screwmar,
recently said about Deion. Y'all didn't hear him?
I want him to break every record, but let's get back to the politics and the economics of this. Who ultimately benefits the most from Deion Sanders' talent at the University of Colorado? Can we keep it a buck?
I know somebody out there is thinking,
who was Umar Johnson?
This is Dr. Umar Johnson.
Peace and love, black families. The Prince of Pan-Africanism, King Kong Conscious, coming to you live from the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey RBG International Leadership Academy.
Peace and Pan-Africanism, peace and Pan-Africanism. The Prince of Pan-Africanism is back.
Before I get into this, I just got to say this. I can't take someone who calls themselves
The Prince of Pan-Africanism is
King Kong Conscious.
I can't take him seriously. I used to listen to this guy, but now he's a joke to me. And there's some other reasons, and maybe I'll get to it. I mention it later, or maybe I get to it in another video. But I can't. This dude think he the second coming of Marcus Garvey or somebody.
Yeah, bro, but let's get back to what he was saying.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead, Doc.
We're talking about an all-white, lily-white university. Are we going to keep it a buck? Because if we're going to keep it a buck, the white power structure is benefiting more than Deion and his two sons ever could. Let's keep it a buck.
So in here, he says some things that's true. So as he said, let's keep it a buck and let's break down everything that he said. At the end of the day, he is correct. The white power structure benefits way more than Deion and his sons ever could. But if we're going to keep it 1,000, isn't that the same power structure that benefited more than the HBCUs? You know, when Deion was at Jackson State? Well, let's think about it for a second. Do y'all remember when Jackson State hosted College Game Day? Let's think about all the commercials and all the coverage that it got. Now, we don't own any of those companies, right? Meaning that if none of those companies doing the commercials were black owned, guess who ultimately benefits? And let's just think about Aflac, for example. Aflac donated a large amount of money to Jackson State. Deion even had the Jackson State band in the Aflac commercial. Did Jackson State benefit? Yes. But guess who benefited more at the end of the day? Aflac. Do we own Aflac? So guess what? He's correct. The white power structure benefits more. That whole concept that you're talking about, if that applies for him being at Colorado, it also applies when he was at Jackson State. Yeah, let's keep it a buck. Come on, Doc, what else you got?
I'm happy he's doing well. I want him to continue to do well. He is one of us, but let us not forget that all this attention should be going to Jackson State. All this money should be going to Jackson State.
I got to rewind this back.
But let us not forget that all this attention should be going to Jackson State.
Where was he at the last 3 years? I mean, I'm just curious. Deion Sanders gave Jackson State 3 seasons. Did Umar Johnson not see all the attention that Jackson State got? Did he not see Jackson State on ESPN quite a bit?
Jackson State. Hey, when you're a star of this magnitude, you don't have to prove anything by becoming a coach. As he has certainly rejuvenated not only Jackson State, but attention to the SWAC.
Ohio State's going to take on Penn State in the Big Ten matchup. That's going to have rippling effects for the rest of the season. ESPN said, nah. We're not going to Happy Valley. Kentucky's playing Tennessee. Could we want the Rocky Top for the third straight time of the season? ESPN said, no. We have to get down to the SWAC. Who is SWAC?
Not only Jackson State, but a lot of other HBCUs, they won ESPN quite a bit while he was there.
And I said to Deion yesterday when I saw him for a little bit that when I went to Texas Southern, we played on TV once in my entire 4 years of college. We flew on a plane once. We rode a bus from Texas to Florida to play football games. And now to see how far it's come to see HBCUs on national television every weekend, how special that is.
So tell me, Dr. Umar, how much more attention do you want?
All this money should be going to Jackson State.
Did he not see the Aflac commercials with the band in the commercials?
I know how Coach Brown feels about money. Now that is what this jacket needs.
Get help with expenses health insurance doesn't cover.
And guess what? That's money. But there's more. Oh, you better believe there's much more. I find it funny that he didn't mention the $75,000 that Aflac donated to Jackson State, nor did he mention the government and nonprofit supporters or the industry supporters. He didn't mention any of that, but he's saying all of this money should be going to Jackson State. Well, all that money was going to Jackson State. And we got to remember that HBCUs have always had partnerships and supporters. You know, the government, nonprofit, they've always had them. However, more came in when Deion Sanders got to Jackson State. So I got to ask, what is Dr. Screwmar talking about?
We got celebrities rolling up to the University of Colorado who ain't never rolled up to a HBCU in their life.
That's Rick Ross and Snoop, The Rock, and the cast of P-Valley. And if those folks aren't enough, you know Coach Prime always think about the kids. There was Yellow Beezy, NLE Chopper and Key Glock. There was Desi Banks, and there was many others. But I understand what Dr. Screwmar is saying about you got celebrities showing up that, you know, really never stepped foot on an HBCU, because we looked up on the sideline at a Colorado game and we saw the Wu-Tang Clan. You know, we saw Cameron, and we've seen many other people. But guess what? Stephen A. Smith, so did Shannon Sharp. Both of those went to HBCUs. They attend HBCUs. It seems like to me, he needs to take his issue as far as the celebrities showing up, he needs to take that up with the celebrities. But he continues to talk, and he says stuff like this.
All that money, all that energy, all that attention should be going to Jackson State. It should be going to the HBCUs.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Where has this guy been the last 3 years? Everything that he is yakking about is exactly what Deion Sanders has done. He has brought so much attention to HBCUs that it is ridiculous. He has brought so much money. He's brought in all kinds of sponsors and endorsements, not only to Jackson State, but to all HBCUs. So I'm baffled. We even heard Michael Strahan talk about when he played at Texas Southern, and you know how they only got on one plane ride and they took a bus from, you know, Texas to Florida. And you know, it is such a joy to see HBCUs on ESPN every week. I want y'all to go back and look up the numbers. Go look and see how many times HBCUs played on ESPN or CBS or any of those others prior to Deion going to Jackson State, and then look and see what it is after he got there. Go look. Some HBCU was always playing on ESPN. Always. And then as a matter of fact, when, you know, now I'm sitting here thinking about it, when Colorado beat TCU, the first thing that he mentioned when he was talking about the players, and he was talking about Shador and Travis Hunter.
A lot of guys you doubted, one of them from a HBCU. For real? Shador Sanders from a HBCU? The one that played at Jackson last year?
So what is Dr. Umar talking about? I'm not going to, expend any more energy on this, but I got to just add this last part in here. I just got to.
Coach Prime represents black excellence. He does not represent black self-determination.
What you talking about, Willis?
Black self-determination says stay at Jackson State and build up the HBCU movement so we can attract that money back to the HBCUs so we can save our schools and save our communities and save our people.
This is the point where I say, dude, you just talking. You talking. You just bumping your gums, man. What he said makes absolutely 0 sense. None. He obviously does not know where Deion Sanders came from. He don't know what it took to get to where he got. He can't know. There's no way he knows. Now, I will say this. I addressed in a earlier video, that I did feel that Deion should have stayed at Jackson State, right? So I feel Dr. Screwmar when he says that, because I did honestly feel that. But I also said I understand why he left. I subscribe to the notion that all money ain't good money, like Granddaddy and them used to say. But sometimes you have to, 1, do what's best for you and your family. 2, you have to do what's best for the whole. And it's just my belief that what Deion Sanders is doing, going from Pop Warner to high school to college, right, at HBCU, and he did everything that he said he was going to do at the HBCU. He did it all. Everything Dr. Screwmar said should be going on is what Deion Sanders did. He brought all the attention. He brought all the money, right? But I believe that him being in Colorado will bring more attention to black coaches. He's given black coaches the opportunity, and some of those coaches, right, are going to end up being head coaches. So sometimes you got to do, again, what's best for your family and what's good for the whole. That's just, and that's my opinion. And on that note, I've always asked the question, and nobody's been able to answer. Why did everybody put all this pressure on Deion Sanders to bring in all this attention and all this money to HBCUs when you got a Heisman-winning head coach in Eddie George at Tennessee State? Nobody is even mentioning Eddie George. Nobody is putting the same pressure on Eddie George that they did with Deion Sanders. Why? Eddie George won a Heisman. Eddie George played in the NFL. So why isn't that same pressure put on Eddie George? I'll wait. I'm just saying. Anyway, hey, this your boy, so you had some motivated minds. I just want y'all to think about it.
Malcolm and Marcus plus you were reborn. Call me Chad X, new Black Panther. With a raised fist, I resist racist oppression, injustice. Mark my words, I won't quit. Never give up till we get justice.